Welcome to Naked Faith, where we take off the mask, drop the performances, and get honest about what it really means to follow Jesus. I'm Ron, and these are my amazing co-hosts, Grace and Michelle. Together, we're creating a space for real conversations, real stories, and real encounters with a love that never gives up. No agendas, no religious hype. Just real people sharing how God met them in the messy middle and pointing to one truth: Jesus still transforms lives. So whether you're walking strong or hanging on by a thread, you're welcome here. This is Naked Faith. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do this.
So let's get into this. Okay. So first off, for people that are listening, I don't know that I can really show the book on camera, but maybe you guys can see that. Nope. It comes in and out. Anyway, all right. So the book is, yeah, there you go. They got better cameras. All right. So this book is called The Meaning of Mary Magdalene, Discovering the Woman at the Heart of Christianity by Cynthia Bourgeault. So let's give proper credit where proper credit is due. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of decided that we're going to take this book and maybe try to deconstruct it and see where it takes us. And it's kind of very fascinating. So first off, before we kind of get into some deep conversation, I know we've all just gotten through like the first 4 or 5 chapters. What do you guys think?
I love learning.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm very fascinated by all of this, and I'm just excited to learn more and, yeah, learn something new.
Kind of fascinated at the fact that it kind of fills in some of the gaps that you miss in the Bible.
For sure.
Like, particularly like the chapter I was reading, they were talking about Acts, and some of the events that she talks about in this book like fills in some of the gaps that we miss in Acts. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
And I like, I'm not sure if I liked it at first, but I do like now that she provides like other verses in the Bible to support like Mary Magdalene's teachings or what she's trying to say about Magdalene.
Yeah.
As like there's no denying that everyone says that like Magdalene was there at the crucifixion and she was like the first person that Jesus came to, you know? So, and I know that's something we kind of already touched on in a past episode, but just things like that throughout the book of that more scripture supporting all of that.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So that's kind of the same place I've gotten, is like, it's just, it has been very fascinating and filling in, and there's a lot of pull from this to other things that I, like where my mind goes, right? We talked about that last week. Like I got this crazy mind that thinks of weird things, but, the one thing that stuck out to me and I don't know really how to sum this up, but, I did want to say something, and then I know because our pre-show talk, I mentioned something, and Grace was like, "Oh, I can't wait till you talk about that." So,
yeah,
I want to, before we get there, I want to draw a comparison to something. So in this, and in the book, you're like, I agree with you. Like she supports a lot of what she says with the canonical gospels. Did I say that right, Grace?
Yeah.
and the Gospel of Mary. And so, one thing I think, like, these are called the Gnostic Gospels, but interesting, the Gospel of Mary was not found at the same time as the Nag Hammadi Gospels. It wasn't even in the same place. This was found in Egypt about 40 or 50 years before the Nag Hammadi library was. So the Gospel of Mary was not even part of those hidden, buried texts that were found in the desert of Egypt. This was found in Cairo in a shop. So like, and then they were able to reconstruct it. But now here's the sad part is there's big sections of the Gospel of Mary that are missing. And if you read the Gospel of Mary, like you're brought in and out of conversations as they happen because these sections are missing. But one of the things that it talked about was, and I don't remember the exact text that I saw it in, But here's a couple cool things, right? So one thing that she said, and I highlighted this in my book, was Karen King, who was a scholar who wrote another book on the Gospel of Mary. She points out a few things in this gospel. And so she says King summarizes the major tenets of the story. And the first one is Jesus reveals the pure doctrine to his apostles, partly before his death and partly in the 40 days before his ascension. But this is the part that really struck me as cool. Number 2 was after Jesus' final departure, the apostles apportioned the world among themselves, and each takes the unadulterated gospel to the land allotted him. Now, why this was interesting to me is because in the Old Testament, we've all heard the story of Babel, right? You guys, are you familiar with the story of Babel?
Vaguely.
The Tower of Babel? Vaguely? Okay.
Yeah.
So the Tower of Babel is humanity got together and they were going to build a tower. And they were going to build a tower to heaven because they felt like they were better than God. And so they started constructing this tower. And in the middle of constructing this tower, now here's the interesting thing. They all spoke the same language at the time. And in the middle of this, the building the tower, God said, well, we can't have humans building a tower to heaven, even though heaven doesn't exist in our plane, right? And that's where the language confused the languages. He confused their languages so they all spoke different languages. They couldn't understand each other. So why we speak different languages in the world is because of the Tower of Babel. But here's the other interesting thing that happened. In the spiritual realm, the Watchers, which we talked about previously, were all apportioned a part of the earth to be the Watchers of that section. So they were allotted a region, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Watchers rebelled. And this is where the spiritual realm, we've talked about this, the unseen realm, where that comes into play. But God kept a portion for himself, which was Israel. And so the Watchers knew that they could not touch that, right? Well, when Jesus came in the canonical Gospels, the theory is that when Jesus came, he is the king of the universe, right? And he disbanded the Watchers. So they no longer had dominion over the earth, and their portion or their allotment was taken away from them. So this is very fascinating to me that this states this, that the apostles were then allotted areas of the world to go and spread the gospel. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Does that land with you guys or something?
No, I see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is interesting.
No, it does land with you, or no, it doesn't land with you. Like, no, yeah, that's really interesting, or no, like that, I don't even know what that means.
I mean, I kind of get it. Like, I see where you're coming from.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, just it struck me as interesting. The other thing that she talks about was the image. And so Jesus says the image, and I think this is where I kind of got to get into where my mind is, the image, right? And that we're all destined, or no, I shouldn't say destined. We're not destined. The wisdom that Jesus left with us was to get back to the original image, the blueprint of what humanity is supposed to be. And so where I draw this distinction, this is kind of interesting because in the Genesis story, God says, and it's in the plural form, so he's talking to others. We don't really know who those others are. We're assuming it's Jesus and the Holy Spirit. But he says, let us make them in our image, and in our image we shall make them. So, like, what came up for me, right, as I was reading this, and I'm trying to explain this to my wife, who I just wanted to see, like, oh, if I explain this to you, would you get it? And I'm not sure that I was very successful. But here's what I think, right? Like, just reading this, and this is where I think grace is going to get unleashed. So I believe, like, the way I interpret this is that there's this cosmic energy that exists in the world. And we are supposed to be a part of that cosmic energy. And that is the wisdom that Jesus was was here to teach us, was how to get back to that cosmic energy. And by being a part of that cosmic energy, we're all connected in a way that we can't explain, right? Like we don't fathom it right now because we're not connected to that energy. But like there's this divine energy or cosmic energy, I don't know what you want to call it, but it exists in the world. And so when he says like matters of the heart, that's our heart is getting back to this cosmic energy plane where we're connected to one another. And that's the 7 powers of ascension, right? The egos and stuff. We talked about that before. And so to get there, you have to go through this ascension. And this is the kind of knowledge that Mary Magdalene had. And I'm going to drop the mic right there for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to note that also with the 7 powers of the ego and ascending through that, it starts in darkness, like you're ascending from darkness. You're basically creating and coming from darkness. It's like being able to learn how to live with your own shadows, because we all have our shadows, like kind of dark side. I don't know how much you know about that in general. But every time you would say like cosmic energy, all I can think of, what I believe that to be, is just the like energy and frequency of love. That's all it is, and it's just like that's the constant, I suppose, in the world and possibly in the universe. I wish I had seen Interstellar before this, just because I know they have, like, I think that's kind of like the through line of that movie, is that no matter what kind of, well, I can't speak on it because I haven't seen the movie, but they have a whole conversation of like, love is the only thing that everyone has in common in a way, something to that effect. But I do believe that's kind of what we're here to learn, maybe, especially with everything going on in the world and how history has led to this point. Being able to live with love and actually love everyone, and it can be really hard in certain circumstances. But I think just being able to focus on that frequency and that energy, so that the ego is, I don't even know, the ego doesn't take over. I think that's one of the main challenges or issues in our world today, is like the ego running everything when it should be the heart and love in general.
So when you hear the word ego in this context, what do you define that as?
Maybe, I don't know. I guess it's hard, yeah, because like in what context do you mean? Because
Well, I mean, I guess in the context of like, it talks about the ego ascending the 7 powers.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what are they referring to as the ego? I mean, when I think of ego, right, like that's your inherent ability to, like, oh, I'm better than you. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I don't even know really what the definition of ego means, but I think, when I think of ego, I think of like, it's this way of being that, I'm superior in ways.
Right. I think that can be. Maybe that's simply one of the 7 powers of the ego in general. But I think the ego as a whole might just be the power or energy of the mind, It's just very mind centered and focused. Like, I don't know, when I think ego, it's like has to do with identity, but still centered around the mind, because we think we know who we are, or like things like that. But yeah, it's like yeah, like kind of what you were saying, of the mind knows best in a way, or like the mind is in control, or has a name in the game, or has some sort of say in what's going on, when I feel like the ascension through the 7 powers of the ego is about being able to kind of have the heart and mind and soul be able to operate at a higher frequency and really work and operate in tandem with each other in a way that benefits everyone in a way, I think. I don't know. I'm just speaking and I'm not even I don't even know what I don't even know what I'm saying like as I'm saying it.
No, that's really good though, because I just looked up like the definition of ego.
Okay.
And you were kind of spot on, right? It says the I or self of any person, a person as thinking, feeling, and willing, and distinguish itself from the selves of others and from objects of its thought. But here's the other part. This is where I think you were at, which is psychoanalysis, the part of the psychic apparatus that experiences and reacts to the outside world and thus mediates between the primitive drives of the ID and the demands of the social and physical environment.
Yeah. It's weird because it's like, I feel like it's part of our own lens of the world. It has to do with our own perspective. We all have our own unique identities and perspectives, but it's also like something about the ego and the mind tends to want to separate from everything else because we're able to kind of individuate ourselves and identify ourselves, then that somehow might cause more separation from the world around us. Feel like
this is super interesting. So Sigmund Freud, who it was, psychology and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he said ego was the personality that acts as a mediator between the demands of the primal id and the moralistic superego. Interesting.
Same response reaction. Yeah, that's like a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
Because then that just makes me think of like all kinds of philosophers and psychologists. Like
right.
I feel like it's all related to the fact that everyone kind of has their own way of labeling things, identifying things. It's just gotten to a point now in the 21st century where like anyone can say anything ever, but it's somehow certain philosophers and what have you. I know Freud was technically I don't know if he was considered a philosopher or just a psychologist. Yeah, it's just interesting to like see how things have evolved over time because it's like there were always people who always had their own thoughts, but now it's gotten to a point in our history of like anyone can say anything and it may or may not be heard by anyone and everyone, but somehow it's there with all the social media. But yeah, the superego, I don't know as much about that, but I have heard about it. I'll be honest, I took an intro to psychology class in college, but then it got kind of cut short a little bit from COVID, so it's just,
it's been a really long time since college.
Right. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say, well, because the professor's ego got in the way. I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny.
I mean, that could be it too, right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. My psychology professor was very interesting, but that's another story for another day.
So here's another question, though. So along the same lines, right? Like, is our ego constructed over time? And is it influenced by the experiences that we have in life? Like, okay, said a different way, right? I mean, we know that the stages of identity, right, are constructed by experiences that we've had in the past. And so, like, all right, I'm going to give you guys a share. This is a share that, I have crafted. And stages of identity. As a kid, I moved around a lot. Like every 2 years, we were moving somewhere else. And it wasn't just like, we're going to move across town. No, I mean, it was completely uprooted and moved to another state. So from the time I was 7 until I was 16, that was my life. Every 2 years, we would move somewhere else. And I'm the youngest
Hmm.
of the three kids, and so the age gap between my brother and sister. So my brother is 4 years older than me, and my sister is 6 years older than me. So we were never in school together,
Mm-hmm.
except maybe elementary school. But I would have been in kindergarten. My sister would have been in fifth grade. I think my brother would have probably been in fourth grade. So like there was only a short period of time where we were ever in school together, right? So the point of this is that, every time we moved, they were so close together in age that they often shared the same friend group.
Mm-hmm.
But I did not because I was so much younger. So, um, you know, moving like that, I always had to make friends quickly, right? And so part of the stages of identity that I crafted for myself is that, I don't belong because, we're just going to move anyway. And again, I don't want to say like that wasn't a bad life. Like it was incredible to be able to experience all these different things. And so, because I know my parents listen to this, so I don't want them to like then call me up and think, because I'm not trying to like, it is what it is, right? Like, I mean, I had this, it was a really cool childhood, but the stages of identity that created was, I don't belong here, right? And so this has kind of affected me my whole life, and that why I never really made close friends or things like that, because in my mind I was always like, well, I'm just going to leave anyway, right? And so it wasn't until recently like somebody pointed out to me, your stages of identity, you don't belong. Like, how long have you been married? And I was like, oh, well, 32 years. Oh, so you've been married to the same person for 32 years? Don't you think you belong? And he was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. And then they're like, how long have you lived? Like, how long have you lived in Orlando? Well, 20 years in pretty much the same place.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think you belong? And you were like, oh, you know what I mean? I tell you this story to ask you this question, which is, so you talked about love. Is our ego then constructed? Our identity is constructed by our things that we've experienced in the past. But is our ego then tied to our identity? So, like, if let's say, and I'm going to mess up the right term, but if I was a chauvinist, right, would that be because at some point in my past, I had a bad experience with a woman who was an authority figure in my life?
I would
And I
think.
guess chauvinist is not the right word, right? But you know what I'm saying?
No.
Like, if I was an anti-woman, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Would that be something that was constructed because I might have had a bad experience with, an authoritative woman in my life at some point?
I would think so.
Or the other question I ask is like, is hatred, are we inherently born with hatred, or is it a learned?
I feel like hatred is learned.
Yeah, I feel like it's learned too.
I feel like it's yeah. I don't even know what all to say. I mean, I used to work at a daycare as a toddler teacher, and to see I also kind of like substituted at other age ranges, and so to just see like how kids interact with each other, and I would definitely say hatred is learned. I think in some ways, people and children can have their differences just because everyone's brain operates differently, but I feel like there are things that are so deliberate in how they're said or how they're done when it comes to hatred that it's just weird. I don't know. It's like, because with love, it's not necessarily a conscious thing. It's just like the baseline frequency. Whereas I feel like hatred, I mean, I don't know, because I would like to consider myself someone who's not full of hatred or acts on it, but I feel like it's something that's like a deliberate choice that people make, whether it's something they say or do. But then it's hard because I feel like people are saying and doing hurtful things, and like it's on purpose, or they somehow don't even realize that it's harmful. I don't know. It seems very nuanced and layered, but it's wild how the brain can operate and what all that stems from.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many different sides to like the ego and hatred in general. But I was gonna say that I feel like people who are usually more hateful don't necessarily know or experience love.
Yeah.
Maybe they grew up in a life that didn't have much love, or they weren't treated with much love. So then they just perpetuate that same hateful, hurtful, harmful narrative. But it can be hard. I mean, that can be difficult to decipher because everyone has their own life story and experiences. I just feel like that's a commonality. But yeah, it's my guess.
So, okay, so, I'm going to tie this back into what we were talking about. In this image or cosmic energy, that the way I currently understand it. Okay, so going on the theme of what you just said, if somebody who's hateful has experienced bad things in their life and that defines their ego or their identity because they have only experienced evilness, I guess I'm thinking of a better word, right? But so how do you transform someone, right? So if we were to show up, like, let's say we had some really just hateful person that we had encountered, the three of us are walking down the street and we meet this person who's just not nice and is mean and hateful to everyone. How do we transform that person, right? So let's say, again, I guess let me ask it a different way and I'll let you guys jump in here. But like, if we're experiencing this divine love in the sense that Mary Magdalene experienced this divine love, the power of the ego ascending through the darkness and ascending through the seven powers. And I guess that's where it's still hard to comprehend at this point in time, but how do you take that and transform someone who's only known bad things in their life and that's identified who they are?
I feel like that's a deep question.
Yeah.
Because like every person is different, like I said. And for me, I feel like it's just being able to show up for the other person, be there for them in whatever way, and help them see what love is like, or help them to see. It's hard because it's such a hard question because it's easier said than done. But even then, it's
because in like all reality, like you say that, like you can say, show the person more love, but are you really? Like, would you have the confidence or the ability to do that? Would be, the bigger
supposedly Jesus did.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus was the embodiment of love.
Right. Exactly. So if everyone on earth was able to be the embodiment of love,
then what
could that do?
I know. Look at how much better our world would be.
Yeah. Again, somehow easier said than done.
But. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the book, she talks about, and I don't remember exactly what chapter it was in, and I don't know that I had gotten to highlighting this yet. But so going back to the cosmic energy discussion, so Jesus kind of says in the Gospel of Mary, and it might have been Thomas, they asked Jesus about sin, and Jesus said, sin doesn't exist. It's a construct that we created. And it's when we're adulterous in nature. And I don't think that means like adulterous to nature. It's adulterous when we have adulterous characteristics, right? So lying, deception, but we align to matter. And I guess where I've struggled is like the word matter. Like I think of matter, I guess where I get confused is, when we think of matter, I don't know that, and maybe because they were enlightened, I don't know, but the concept of matter, I don't know that it was really well known what that was back in that time, right? Like we now know the earth, the universe is made up of matter and energy and whatever, right? Like we've evolved a lot since, the beginning of time. And so when he says matter, and I'm wondering, like, what does that mean? And I guess I equate that to like the physical realm that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you fall or when you sin, the construct that we create is that we're worshiping, and I don't know if that's a bad word or the right word to use, but we're aligned with matter and not with the the divine cosmic energy.
I can understand that. I get that to a certain extent. Yeah, matter
So
being the physical, and yeah, there's something to that. Of I think when we as people are so focused on the physical, or even too focused, like I don't know, it becomes thing. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like things are so minimized on a micro scale of like what's right in front of me that you like forget the bigger picture, or you forget about the world at large around you. um
So, like, going back to what we were, like, the hatred thing, so would, like, matter be what we would equivalent to, like, hatred, and then we're trying to get to love? Like, just, like, in a
mm,
simple, I guess,
yeah,
explanation.
I don't know. Like I guess I mean in the canonical gospels, he says, you know, his followers are not of this are are in this world but not of this world. And so like okay, so if I think about the that in the relation of matter, to me represents matter is this world. And so if you think about the evilness exists, or bad, you know, not good exists in the world because we are worshiping earthly possessions.
mm-hmm,
You know, like, oh, I gotta have a big house, I have to have the
mm-hmm,
nice car, it's always more, right? Like, you know, we chase
yeah,
the dream of having more stuff. And so wars start because of one, religious differences, but it also starts over land, right? Like I
mm-hmm,
want to own more than you. And
right,
that's how these battles and stuff get manifested. And so like I think of matter as the as this physical realm, and you're
mm,
worshiping the things in the physical realm. Because the other thing he says in the gospel is that sickness and death are a result of us worshiping matter. And
mm,
that when we're aligned with the cosmic energy, then we wouldn't have sickness and death.
mm. I think of matter as obviously physical, as you said, but it doesn't necessarily have to be good or bad. I feel like it is maybe more about a balance. In some ways we do need matter, like obviously we're here physically on earth, that's still, we're able to exist because of matter.
Yeah, yeah.
But being able to kind of ground ourselves on earth, because I don't know, worshiping matter, I can definitely see how it's like about the physical earthly possessions and things, but what does it mean to worship the earth itself or herself? Is the earth entirely matter, or is there also a like spiritual aspect to that? um you know I feel like there's a balance to find with matter, and because like what would be the other side of the coin, to
Yeah.
matter, like
Well,
what's
let me read this dialogue. So this is
okay.
it's from the book, and it's the dialogue in the gospel. All right. So it says there now this is conversations they're having with Jesus. And they said, "Tell us about matter. Will it survive or not?" The Savior answered, "All of nature with its forms and creatures exist together and are interwoven with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They will be resolved back, however, to their proper origin. For the compositions of matter return to the original roots of their nature.
Mm.
Those who have ears, let them hear this." And then Peter said to him, "Since you have explained everything to us, tell us one more thing. What is sin of the world?" And the Savior replied, "Sin as such does not exist. You only bring it into manifestation when you act in ways that are adulterous in nature. It is for this very reason that good has come among you, pursuing its own essence within nature in order to reunite everything to its origin. And then there's one more thing here. Then he continued, this is also the reason for sickness and death, because you embrace what deceives you, consider these matters, then with your spiritual intellect. Attachment to matter gives birth to passion without an image of itself because it is drawn from that which is contrary to its higher nature. The result is that confusion and disturbance resonates throughout one's whole being. It is for this reason that I told you to find contentment at the level of the heart. And if you are discouraged, take heart in the presence of the image of your true nature.
What page is that on?
It's on page 46 of the book.
Yeah. There's a lot to that, I feel, honestly. Starting with just the first part of all of nature will be resolved back, however, to their own proper origin, for the compositions of matter return to the original roots of their nature. So like I was saying before, I feel like that has to do with the earth itself and how the earth entirely is an entire like cycle of death and rebirth, you know? There's death and decay, but then there's also life and birth always growing, you know? Like those are always happening in tandem at the same time. But I think to relate it to what's going on right now, like, and also relating it to maybe what they mean by the reason for sickness and death, and like embracing certain matters. It's like inflating too much of one thing, you know, throws off the balance of that death and rebirth, you know. And as you were saying it sounded like focusing on certain matters that have no meaning or just are come from kind of just empty meaning, and it only has to do with maybe money. That's just what I thought of. I don't know, when there's no inherent like purpose for it, it's just to like produce and just have or make money in some way. That's what seems like leading to more sickness and death in some way, perhaps. Does that make sense?
No, yeah. So I want to take the first part of this.
Mm-hmm.
All of nature with its forms and creatures exist together
Mm-hmm.
and are interwoven with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so when I read that, that's where I kind of this divine cosmic energy that exists. That's where I got that from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, you know. So I think about, okay, there's this cosmic energy that we're all connected. We're all connected. We're connected with nature. We're connected with the animals. We're connected with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because you think about like your dog, right? Like, or your cat. Or, I'm not a cat person, so I would never have a cat. But I mean, like your dog, right? Like, I mean, you know, sometimes your dog can tell when you're not feeling well or when you're sad. You know, it's kind of funny to say this, but there's a you know, on Facebook, there's these reels that pop up, you know, and there's this one where they've got these dogs and they're like hosting a radio show and they're talking about why they do certain things. And it's actually super funny. But this one was like, you know, man, do they not understand what it means when I, you know, put my head on his feet, you know, like, oh, dude, the other dog's like, yeah, dude, man, they don't get it. You know, he's like, yeah, man, you know, my master's feeling sick and I just want to be there for him, you know, and it's just funny. Right. And you're like, okay, but now, and I think like, that's what I thought of when I was reading this. Right. But okay, all of nature with its forms and creatures exist together and interwoven with each other. And I was like, okay, so like it's all connected.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all connected. And somehow we've lost the connection.
Mm-hmm. Or like most people may not be conscious of it or aware of it. It's really just like, people just don't know like how it's all connected or.
Okay, so so it sounds like we're all kind of aligned in what I was thinking when I read that. And so like go back to the other question of the powers of the ascending through the 7 powers of the ego. Like, is that what that means? Right? Is that where you're coming at? Or is that what's landing with you? So when I think, okay, if there's this cosmic energy that puts us all in connectedness, and we can ascend the 7 powers, and then we join this cosmic plane of connectedness, and like, what is that like? So, Mary Magdalene describes that, she had visions where she was really there with Jesus, even though he wasn't physically there, if that makes sense.
Yeah. To be able to like feel his energy or his love or something to that effect.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like, actually just earlier today I was thinking about, I feel like I'm always in some way thinking about what's going on in the world right now, and I started to think more about kind of just the timeline of everything, because at the time of recording this, this past weekend was like the big No Kings protest, and I was just thinking about how much our society has had to protest in the last like less than 100 years, maybe even like 60 years, because we're finally reaching a point where everyone can actually be equal. And I feel like that's kind of that cosmic energy, that to me is what it's like to have that cosmic energy of love, of like everyone is truly equal and has everything that they would need to live a healthy life. And it's just interesting that we're at a point in time where I feel like things are just starting to really, like, I don't know, calm down. Not right now, like we're still in a whole mess of things. But in the grand scheme of like time, I'm like, there's been so much oppression for so many centuries, and we're finally like basically at the turn of the millennium, it's gotten to a point where like my generation is kind of like the first generation of women who are can actually be independent, like financially independent and and whatnot. And like we're learning that we can have children like after the age of 25. You don't have to have kids. Not that there's anything wrong with any of that.
Right,
it's just a matter of like women specifically are able to have just basic rights in that sense. And so then it's a matter of
I wouldn't
all
recommend
kinds of
having kids later in life. I'm just saying.
But that's fair. Everyone's got their own opinion, I suppose. But you know what I mean? No, it's just like, yeah, it's just so many different demographics and communities of like really being able to be equal. And it's not even about power. It's just the equality. Yeah. But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I was 39 years old when my daughter was born.
Mm-hmm.
And although I love her to death, I just wonder, like, 10 years earlier, what would have happened? Although she's kept me young, because, she's 16 now, and trying to keep up with her is, a little bit of a challenge. But hey, keeps me on my toes, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say keeping you on your toes, keeping you like, I don't know, relevant to what's happening and what's going on.
Well, I don't know about that. We're
no, that's what your son is for.
Well, at least I was a little younger when he was born. But I mean, I'll just put it in context. Like, this is kind of sad that I think about, but my niece, Michelle's niece, is 2 years younger than my daughter. Like, that's just bizarre. So my nephew was having kids at the same time we were having a kid. Like, it's just, it's bizarre. Right.
Yeah. The whole, like, all the generational stuff is very interesting and weird, how like certain age gaps between like siblings and all that can be so different. And
that was a diversion, but
yeah, but I get it.
Okay, so
It's almost like time is irrelevant. But anyways.
well, I mean,
I
the
was
benefit of living in 2025 is that we are we tend to be healthier, right? We tend to be healthier
mm-hmm.
longer.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think part of that is we're learning that, to eat the right way, all the lies that we've been told for 50 years about food and things like that. I mean, people are starting to awaken that, natural food, they call it single ingredient foods, are really the way to live,
Mm.
right? Like processed foods is what's killed our caused diseases.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I think, all right, processed foods has caused diseases, man-made manufactured things have caused these health issues that we've had. And as society, especially your generation, Grace, as you guys are moving back towards the natural, holistic things in life,
Mm.
like your health is going to be so much better, right? And so, okay, if that's more getting back to the divine,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, you know, God gave us plants and animals and things to eat that wasn't intended to be, you know, I mean, you think about a loaf of bread. When a loaf of bread can sit on a shelf for a month before it molds or rots, like doesn't that make you wonder what the heck's in that bread?
Right.
And you're putting that in your body, is what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I've told this story to some coworkers, and this was several years ago. My daughter, when she was going through the very picky stage of eating things, there was a time frame where she only took sandwiches. That's all she would eat was a sandwich. And so I started thinking about like this bread, oh, this is all processed food, and I don't really want her consuming that. So I just did an experiment. I found on Amazon, you can buy this hand milled flour. So it's not processed. It's just, they put it through the crank and then they put it in a bag. So I bought some and I actually made, rolls for her to make sandwiches with. The interesting thing is those were fresh made, no preservatives in whatsoever. And, like I'm looking at this thinking, oh, I'm just going to make this double batch. And turns out that was the biggest mistake ever because in 4 days they were unedible.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm sure I learned like, oh, throw them in the freezer, they'll last longer. But what was interesting to me was that, this loaf of bread that I bought at the grocery store a month ago is still sitting in my refrigerator. I can still eat it because what's in it? It's keeping it fresh that long. It's not natural.
Right.
And so, like, okay, the things of the matter, the cosmic energy, like these are not natural. And that's kind of the way I'm taking this is, so when we think about sickness and disease and because we embrace what deceives you, the reason for sickness and death, because you embrace what deceives you. Like that's powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I don't know. What do you guys think? Like
somehow that feels like it ties back to the ego or the mind in general, because if something can deceive you, it's like being able to distract your mind from your soul. I don't know, when companies or whoever is trying to sell you the next best thing, like a new shiny whatever, and they're like, don't think about how it was made, don't pay attention to that stuff, just look at the final product. And it's like, for something to actually be worth anything, I think it needs, like, kind of like you said, it's more holistic, and it's just anything made more ethically or with love, like something like that. Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
Because I feel like anything that deceives you in that sense, maybe in a way is slowly eating at you or killing you slowly, in a sense. If you're more focused on the mind instead of like the body as a whole, you're not thinking about what you're putting into your body or how you're treating your body in general. I don't know. It just leads to a certain path, I suppose.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. The body is the temple. But that's just, obviously one part of that phrase of, but no, it does go along with it because you're talking about matter in general. And it's like, what is matter if not the body itself? And the body is a temple. And it's like, the earth is also a temple because it's our home and it's our physical home. And our body is our temple because that's what we need to live. So I'm not perfect. We all have our, ways of being, I suppose, that may not, be treating our bodies as temples, but it's all part of the learning process, I suppose, and being human.
Yeah, but okay, so I just had this thought as you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, when we physically die, our physical body doesn't, it stays here, right?
Mm-hmm.
From dust you were made, dust you were created, for dust you will return.
Mm-hmm.
So we've all seen, when somebody dies, they decompose and eventually they melt back into the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that the world of matter? And then, here's the other interesting thing, and this is philosophical, right? Like these scientists have done these experiences or experiments, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and the only thing that they can't really identify in your body is the soul. And where does the soul reside, right? And so, like, they can measure the brain waves, they can see the brain activity, you can measure the heart, you can see what the liver does, but nobody can quantify the soul. And so is that the part that, like, is that the spiritual intellect? Is that the, when we die and we say our soul goes to heaven, right? But what is that? And what transcends? And I guess this is where I just get, my mind is getting like, okay, what is it, the part of me, is it my intellect, my spiritual intellect, the heart, so to speak, the image? Is that, what is that? Is that my soul? And that's what's got to ascend the seven powers? Is that the ego that they're talking about? And then what does that look like? And and I know we don't have an answer for that, but it's just like, that's where I go when I'm reading this. Okay, what exactly is that?
Yeah, that's a
the image,
valid
you mean?
question. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you talking about the image?
The ego. Well, I'm talking about the
soul?
image, the ego. I'm just trying to make sense of all, like,
Yeah. Like, what do we take with us?
Yeah.
If we're not taking our body.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Who are we without our body?
Yeah.
Maybe. Also, could be an additional question. Or I don't know if it's along the same lines of what you're trying to say. But I do get.
Well, I mean, I think, like, okay, that's a good question. Who are we without our body? Well, I mean, my body is just a physical manifestation of a bunch of cells and matter put together. Mm-hmm. But when I die, and the spiritual part leaves and goes to wherever it ends up going. Like, when I think about what Mary Magdalene is saying in her gospel, what Jesus responds, and then what Thomas says in his gospel, these things, like, what is the ego in the matters of the heart? They mentioned that a lot, right? See through your heart. Your heart is the vision.
Right.
And I know, like, when we hear heart, we in the Western culture have made many different meanings out of that, right? Like, there's the physical heart, which keeps you alive. I mean, if your heart stops beating, you're dead. The only organ in your body that, will function until your last dying breath, right? And it's constantly moving, and it's involuntary. I mean, you don't control it. It just keeps doing it, right? But I don't think that's the heart they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And so then you say, like, oh, an athlete, an athlete that excels at a sport, they say, oh, that kid's got a lot of heart. It's not the same heart that we're talking about. So what is that? And what does that mean? I haven't quite found the answer to that in the reading so far.
Yeah.
And so like when I, again, tying it all back together, because we're up to an hour now, and you know, the connectedness, if we're connected to this divine energy and it's all interwoven together, then is a construct that we created because we're adulterous in nature, because we tie ourselves to matter and not to the spiritual intellect that we're supposed to be ascending to. Like those are the things that I just like. I'm still trying to wrap my head around and go figure what is that, because like it's, you know, there's some bizarre stories in the canonical gospels that you're you know, you still scratch your head. You know, here we are 3,000 years later, and we're 2,000 years later, we're still saying, what did Jesus really mean when he said that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, now you throw this in here and you're like, this is just on a whole nother level.
Right. I'm honestly kind of sad that we have to end the episode, because I feel like we literally just like opened the door to like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I would love to, for the next episode, just like really dive into what does it mean to like see through the heart, or
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
All right, so that's our topic. What does it mean to see through the heart?
See through the heart.
Okay,
like
so
it.
that's your homework for the week, is to figure out, or at least come with some sort of ability to have like, maybe we can figure this out.
Mm-hmm. And like, what does it mean to like live with your heart open, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel
True,
like
yeah.
part of the ego, and just a lot of people in general, we tend to really guard ourselves, protect ourselves, which is definitely good. Like boundaries are good, obviously, but to still do that and be able to live with an open heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now I'm excited about next week, because then.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, is there anything you wanted to say before we like officially close out the episode? Because I feel like you haven't gotten to share your thoughts, and I want to hear your thoughts.
No, no, you guys are fascinating.
Well, thank you. But you don't have anything you want to like add,
right.
or
Not yet. I'm sure I will next week, but
okay. All right. Yeah. And we're gonna keep reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep reading.
For sure. All right.
Interesting. All right. Well,
where can they find us, Michelle?
You can find us on Facebook at Naked Faith Podcast, on Instagram, TikTok, Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, all the social medias, all of them Naked Faith Podcast. If you have any questions or you want to get in on the conversation, you can also email us at nakedfaithpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
Yep.